Hi everyone, Scott Brooks with the Waxahachie Sun on a very brief sunspot today. I wanted to share something with you that we continue to try to evolve here at the company. As you may know, we have several podcasts covering all sorts of subjects. My podcast, which we have referred to as Sunspot, is really largely about the city of Waxahachie and the goings-on at the city level. To do that, I have on David Hill every other week to talk about the city. And then on the off weeks, there have been, most of the sunspots have been with a human interest story involving someone in Waxahachie. And then a few times there have been podcasts or segments where it's just me sharing with you some things that I think are important. A number of people have asked over the years for me to kind of put into words my columns every week, and I've not done that, and this really won't be that, but if you've watched any of those standalone segments, they've been about more, I guess, personal issues or real kind of grassroots issues that affect people, impact people. And I'm going to continue to do those from time to time, probably once, maybe a month, maybe twice, who knows. But we've decided to, rather than call those Sunspot and thereby confuse some folks with what might be on, we are going to be labeling the times in which I do my own show with Straight Up with Scott Brooks. And you will see some of that logo and some of the promotion of that as time goes on. You'll see it behind me on the screen. So going forward, the sunspots that are a podcast of me just sharing things with you one-on-one, really, or one on a whole bunch of people, will be called Straight Up with Scott Brooks. I'm excited about it, look forward to it, and hope that by sharing some of my passions about what's going on in the city and the state and the country, that maybe together we can have healthy discussions. So just want to let you know that. More to come, but that's the message today. Thank you. Welcome to Sunspot for the week of November the 15th. Scott Brooks of the Waxahachie Sun. I'm glad to be with you. Today I want to talk to you about a number of things that have to do with the impact of hate in this country. In my column this week I talked about hate and about how if we're not careful, our passions that come out in the form of hate towards someone or something because we don't like how they do things, what they do, what they say, how they look, whatever, any number of reasons to I guess, hate someone, what that ultimately causes in our country. And I'm going to use some national examples that give you a clear indication of where I believe hate has brought us to. And while they're national examples, they have an impact right here at home in Waxahachie. But let me just share with you a little bit about what I wrote this week as an excerpt. The greater good is replaced in this country by revenge that emanates from hate. Being above board has given way to clandestine attempts to personally gain at any expense. Destroying others has suffocated the idea of working together. Securing votes comes before doing what's right. And buying into a deeply divisive kind of woke culture now tempts otherwise good people with making petty, immature decisions based solely on anger and hate. And we've seen that both at the local level and certainly at the national level, where because of hate, people make all kinds of crazy decisions. And it's a challenge for us, because I certainly can speak from my own perspective that if I'm not careful and I dislike somebody really, really bad or in the worst way, I can lose sight of what it is, what the greater good is, and really focus in on being petty and immature. That said, America in 2020 made a change at the president level that I sense and believe was based almost entirely on hate. One could argue that despite strong dislike and hate for the man, the country from 2016 to 2020 was strong, was growing. We were becoming self-reliant in a number of ways and areas, and all the economic factors and indications were positive. So it's a great example of how the greater good was doing well, but the powerful hate for the man behind it all was increasing at the same time. So ultimately it led to a change in the presidency in 2020, and that change has now resulted in a number of things. Again, I'm going to share them with you here in just a second, the specifics, but from a general perspective, what has happened is that change has resulted in what is really hyperinflation, illegal immigration run amok. Our border is wide open, and no one there really capable of stopping it. That isn't to say that Border Patrol isn't good at what they do, but there's too many people coming across at one time for the Border Patrol to handle. Stagnant supply chain, which is devastating this country. Americans are still trapped in the Middle East and Afghanistan. Out of control school boards. You see more and more these days school boards that are taking it upon themselves to create curriculum, instill and install curriculum. In some cases, superintendents have been caught to keep a kind of a hate list or a target or whatever you want to call it, list of parents who are boisterous and are willing to stand up and take on the challenge of dealing with these school boards and these superintendents. There's plenty of disregard for the Constitution right now when it comes to mandates for masks and vaccines and that sort of thing. And of course, our debt continues to explode. Even, I think, either yesterday or today, the $1.2 or $1.3 trillion infrastructure package has been approved, and so that's just more debt that we're going to be dealing with. So, from a general perspective, hate has led us to a place where we now, as moms and dads, grandparents, young people, really all people of all walks of life, are dealing with the outcome and the residual impact. And so with that in mind, I want to share with you kind of what that has translated into as it relates to your life and to mine. According to the Washington Post, I want to share with you just some examples of what inflation, by example, has caused in this country. So for those retailers who buy things at wholesale, which most do, obviously, wholesale prices in this country have gone up 8.3% compared to August of 2020. So in 1 year, essentially, the increase in pricing at the wholesale level has gone up 8.3%. Prices with respect to meat and poultry, fish and eggs are up 6% over last year. They're up 16% over August 2020. Sysco, you may know Sysco, and it's SYSCO, the proper spelling, is a company that provides restaurants with all sorts of food and things of that nature. They have experienced inflation of 10.2%, which obviously is then passed on. They don't eat all that. They pass it on to the restaurants, which then pass it on to those of us who eat at restaurants, which there are a lot of us that eat a lot at restaurants. So that 10.2% has trickled down to the average consumer who likes to eat at restaurants. So with respect to what folks in the industry call in-home food, which are groceries, there are some examples of how a change last year now has led us to a place of some serious inflation. The American Bankers Association says that it expects prices of baked goods to rise another 5 to 10% in all categories between now and the end of this year. So think about that, whether it's a standalone bakery, a bakery in your grocery store, price of donuts, whatever related to baking is also going up. And we might say, well, really, how does hate translate into those kinds of enormous increases in pricing and inflation? Well, we've all, most of us anyway, have heard about the supply chain bottlenecks across this country. You've seen pictures and videos of ships waiting in port to be serviced, to be unloaded, And you go to the grocery store and you'll see empty shelves. You go to buy clothes, you may see empty shelves. But let me give you one example of one of the nation's largest ports in Long Beach, California. The wait there for a ship is 8 days, and there are 56 ships in line at any given time in Long Beach. I've been to Long Beach and seen the port there. It's an incredible sight to see. But to have to sit there for 8 days in a line of 56, you can imagine what that does to the country when you factor in all the other ports that are experiencing the same sort of delays. So that said, about 80% of goods that are bought and sold in this country arrive here, are shipped by a shipping container. Last year, transporting a 40-foot steel container, which is about what you see on an 18-wheeler, cost $1,920. That was a year ago. So if I were to go out and want to ship a full container of my goods that I've created to someplace in the country, on the average, is going to cost $1,920. That was last year. Today, the cost of that same shipping can be as much as $14,000, according to a company out of Kansas that deals in logistics and automation with respect to shipping. That's incredible when you think about it. Just consider this. In our own state, one of the country's largest producers of plastics, us, factories shut down last winter because of the power outages associated with that crazy, wild, kind of hellish week in, I believe it was in February. So in our own state, again, we're one of the largest producers of plastics in the country. Because of the power outage, because of the failures of ERCOT and folks, I guess appointed folks, maybe in the political realm, really didn't know what they were doing. We faced a disaster really for at least a week, and that has led to price increases with things like packaging, plastics. What that then leads to are increases in the prices of breath mints, of soda cans that have the plastic rings around them, grocery store produce bags. So if the price of a produce bag goes up, you can bet that we as a consumer are going to pay for whatever that increase was or is. A shortage of wooden pallets has resulted in increased prices. Aluminum prices have hit their highest level in 10 years. So food companies are incurring higher costs in boxing, canning, and packaging their products as a result. So it's easy, at least for me, to be able to say, well, would any of this have occurred had we kept going with continuity in our country with respect to leadership and domestic policy? If that would have continued, would we be facing the choke points that we're facing today? And would you and would I be paying higher prices at the grocery store? I saw a report the other day that said that a turkey, like 10-pound, 12-pound, whatever pound turkey you go get at the grocery store, is now 41% more in price than it was this time last year. That is a definite impact, painful impact on families across this city, across the state, across the country. So very real things have happened as a result of making a transition last year in November in terms of the leadership of the country. That leadership, that change, I arguably was made largely because of hate for one person. Hate that is based on social sites, what is read there, what the media exposes or says they're exposing, reports. So we end up oftentimes hating somebody or something because of what we hear, not because of what we know. And again, I argue that the hate that got to a crescendo really for Donald Trump is largely based on supposition and rumor and what the media crafted and things of that nature. So before we realize it, there was so much hate for Donald Trump that the country made a change that it's now paying the price for, a painful price. let me just mention something about gas prices. We all can easily see what the gas prices are because of the big LED signs that are on every gas station around. This time last year, the average price of gas in the state of Texas was $1.87 a gallon. Remember that? $1.87 a gallon. I think most of us were happy that that was the case because $1.87, we can all pretty much live with that. This year, the average gallon costs $3.02 in the state of Texas. That's a 61.5% increase in gas, which all of us need, all of us buy often, and that's a $1.15 difference increase in per gallon of gas. So if you got a 30-gallon, or say not 30, you say a 20-gallon gas tank, then you're going to pay more than $20 more for a fill-up today than you did this time last year. That's substantial and that's meaningful to the average family in this country. So, and then I don't have to say much really. The result of the hate led to a new leadership that chose to become far more reliant on OPEC and on foreign countries for oil than the previous administration, which said we're going to be totally reliant on our own country to produce oil and therefore keep gas prices in check. That change has led to where we are with respect to gas prices. So the point of all of this is that hate is a powerful emotion, so powerful that it has turned our country from one trajectory to another. The one that it has turned us to is one that's on a downward spiral that is resulting in all kinds of examples of price increases and challenges for the average American family. And even in Waxahachie, there have been examples in the past year, and I certainly am part of this, where the dislike or disdain for someone's actions, whether it's a politician or somebody else, but in this case maybe I should say politics, has led me to be rather boisterous and I guess you could say bombastic about those behaviors that often comes out as what others might consider hate. And I certainly don't hate anybody. Matter of fact, some of the people that I've reached out to kind of hold accountable from a watchdog perspective are people that I consider friends, still even today. So we can disagree with people, we can hold them accountable, we can want to change, we can do all sorts of things that don't include hate. And that, I would argue that's what we should be doing. Inject hate into something and suddenly the greater good, the sight of the greater good is lost. So I wanted to share with you today just some real tangible impacts of hate that I believe occurred last fall that have led this country to a place that impacts each of us every day. And the message is that we should check hate at the door and go about trying to help each other in firm, stern, challenging ways that can be effective, minus hate, minus the pettiness, minus the immaturity, and that sort of thing. And again, I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone, but I think if we can get rid of hate in this country, we'll be a whole lot better off. I would say that if hate didn't exist last fall, and that we would have had another 4 years of the trajectory that we were on then, our country would be stronger than it's ever been in its history, and both across the world and domestically, had it not been for hate. So with that, I want to ask you to just consider the role of hate in your life as I am in my life, and that if we can rid ourselves of it, we'll be a whole lot better off. That said, this is Scott Brooks for Sunspot, the week of November the 15th, signing off. Have a great week. Bye-bye.